Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is Freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Lenka Horakova. Lenka is an experienced psychotherapist with qualifications from the University of Warwick and the University of Nottingham. She specialises in the fields of childhood trauma, domestic abuse and sexual violence. And in her words, her academic work focuses on the somatisation of trauma or the physical manifestation of trauma-related psychological issues. And she says in her experience as both a psychotherapist and as a researcher, I have found that our psychological experiences can cause significant changes to our physical well-being, although the mind and body are often treated separately, and it's in her belief that the link between them is crucial to good health. I'm really excited about this interview because Lenka was actually my counsellor, adult counsellor within talk therapy for 2 whole years. She really helped support me on my journey, and I'm just really excited to reconnect with her again, and I'm sure she'll be able to share some amazing bits of tips to help anybody who's going through a very difficult time. Hi, Lenka.
Hi, Anna. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for sparing me the time today, because I was trying to think actually before we set this up how long ago it was that I first met you, and I know that it was over 2 years because I know that I had adult counselling with yourself for 2 years, so it would have been 2019 possibly, or maybe even a little bit earlier than that. So we've known each other for a few years now, and of course, like on a professional level, I finished the great support that you gave me back in January of this year. So it's great to have you on here because with the Freedom Podcast, we talk about 3 pillars. Freedom in love, which is all around self-care and self-love. Freedom in money, financially, because obviously that helps. Mm-hmm. And also freedom in mind, because I feel like those 3 pillars have given me equilibrium in my life. Yeah. So I know when you helped me with the support that you gave me, I know we also had quite a bit of synergy at times because we used to talk about different books or things and topics. So it's just great to have you on here to maybe discussing some of the work that you've done and what you think is important, because I suppose we've had such a crazy world that's gone on recently with the pandemic, this last sort of 12, getting on for now for 18 months. And like we were just discussing before we actually recorded, your work has really increased, hasn't it, with everything that's happened?
Very much so, yes, absolutely. And it's really brilliant to see you, Anna, and it's so brilliant to kind of overlook, suddenly or look back on the journey that you have come. And if you have asked me the question, when did we actually meet, I would probably would be lost for knowing when it was, because it's been a journey, and it's really brilliant to reconnect. I absolutely agree about the synergy as well.
Exactly. So how did you, I'm going to ask, because I don't know the answer to this question, how did you just get into kind of doing this kind of work and helping and supporting people? How did it all start for you?
Okay. I think for me, it started very, very early in my life, which I was far too young, but I was always interested in psychologies and, emotions and how people feel, think. But I didn't pursue that until I was probably in my 30s. And then I joined university course for a first just kind of an introduction to counseling. And I realized, yes, this is for me. And then I started with university number 1, university number 3, and that's where I am. So it was through different counseling process and learning. Yeah, in the last about 10 years.
Yeah, and you were saying just before you're doing the doctorate as well. Then.
Yes, I've got a place now for a doctorate with Chester University about psychological trauma. So that's very exciting as well. So hopefully that will also bring some contribution to the society with some new knowledge, new information, which hopefully will be helpful.
Yeah, and I bet it's really rewarding the work that you do, because you saw the change in me.
Yes, absolutely. It's incredibly rewarding. It's absolutely so ever so rewarding, seeing people coming out of the other end and actually feeling better and exactly fulfilling these three, ideas, as you mentioned about the Freedom Project, to come out of it free in their mind, which is a particular that sort of a work that we have done together, to actually free the mind from their difficulties and the challenges. It's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. Do you sometimes feel that it's quite draining as well? Because I do coaching, and sometimes I do think that helping people, because you're helping people with their problems, it's different when I'm doing coaching, but I can imagine that sometimes it can also wipe your energy. If you had a particular bit, I suppose, with everything as well that's been going on with the pandemic, maybe, I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, I think with any work, once you deal with people, you involve with people's emotions, you're taking them on, even when it comes to taking them on within the session and then leaving them behind, it takes energy away from you. So I think for me, it's definitely taught me self-care, which I remember when at the very beginning of my practice, I was like, I'm great. I don't need a self-care, I suddenly realized actually self-care is really important,
Yeah.
So to kind of maintain my own, emotional energy and recognize when it's potentially getting a little bit too much and I'm getting a little bit tired, to really step back and have a few days off.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think it's so important with everybody, because I think even more so when you're in your position, because you're just going to get that. Everyone's got to get that kind of balance. And then sometimes people argue whether you can actually get balance in your life. But I think if anything's really dominant, if you feel extra tired for a certain way, that's kind of like the wake up call to kind of spend. That's what I've realised with me, because sometimes I'm a bit of a workaholic. I'll spend like late hours, because I enjoy what I do, and then I have to say, no, Anna, you spend it some ridiculous time. Get more sleep.
Absolutely.
I have my whole routine in my bath and the candles and the magnesium salts and all that kind of stuff to help me wind down now. And I notice myself, if I don't do it, I feel like I've really missed out on a major treat.
Absolutely. And I remember actually about this process, we talked about it together, didn't we? About you and your self-care and the sort of working. And then I think that's probably part of our synergy as well. I love my work as well. And then I work, very hard, and I find the balance in, where I actually rest and where I work. It does take a while. And I think it takes some level of emotional maturity as well to get to the place where I am okay to rest, no matter what. I am okay to sit down and look after myself. It does take some time.
Yeah, because
self-care.
I think self-care is really, really important. Another thing, one of the biggest things that you taught me, and I often follow, you'll be proud of this, I actually kind of forward this to other people. It's one of those things that stuck in my head. Because I think as women, we juggle a lot of things, especially if you're a mum, you take on all these things and you neglect yourself.
Yes.
And I heard someone the other day who, a friend of a friend, found out their husband was cheating on them, and they were really, really hurt and upset. And they were saying, like, I need to be strong. And I think there's this thing about, and I was always like that, but it was one of the things that you taught me, that all of that energy, we beat ourselves up for getting upset. And actually now, if I've had like a stressful time, if I get upset, I think, oh yes, it's all that energy coming out. I'm allowing myself to, I can't remember the wording you gave, but just be and just let it out rather than fighting it.
Let it be.
And
that's such exactly the example of freedom of the mind, isn't it? we can't help emotions. We can only regulate emotions, and we can only allow emotions for emotions to settle, to feel okay, so absolutely. And I really like to hear the sort of like, oh, I'm feeling sad. Okay, bring it on, let's just feel it.
Exactly.
And it doesn't make you any weaker. It doesn't make you,
exactly.
It makes you actually so much stronger if you allow the sadness to come, exercise it, and then feel, actually, this is done, let's carry on.
Yeah. And interestingly, I've had people now with this podcast reach out to me who I don't know. At the beginning, when it first started, I was sort of, sharing it with a lot of people I knew and like my regular sort of followers and things like that. And now what's really lovely is I get people that I've never met before
Right.
reach out to me through Instagram or Facebook and say, thanks for putting this podcast together. All sorts of different stories and journeys that they're on, or maybe different traumas that they're experiencing. And that it has helped them in some way, just listening to people's stories or the shares that we have on there. Yes. So for you, having all of your experience through sort of helping people with trauma and all sorts of different things that they've gone through, anyone that's listening to this right now who could be, and it's going to be difficult for you to answer this because it all depends what they're getting through. But just on that example of that, if I think a lot of us, and I can imagine men have it worse, where they feel that they've got to be strong because they're the breadwinner, or they, it's that ego a lot of the time. Are there any kind of tips that you would say if you're going through a difficult time and you're listening to this now? Obviously, that was one of them that, release that energy and pause, really. I think a lot of that was. Anything else that you would share that if anyone's going through, a very difficult time? Because I think there's a lot of people right now that are, with everything that's happened with COVID.
What I would say, and that's how I often start when I have workshops with the groups, which would then apply if a group of people is listening. If I have workshops with a group of people, just to kind of offer them some emotional support, I always ask them, how are you? So potentially what I would say to people, ask yourself, how are you? And listen to yourself how you answer. But then ask yourself another question, and how are you really? And then push the button of the pause and think about it. And if you feel that the how are you really was actually a different answer to how you answered yourself, how are you? Maybe you're holding something that, would be really helpful to explore. And it's hard to talk about, our difficulties. However, acknowledging them, talking about them is the only way, to move away from it.
Yeah, definitely. I actually think like you go to the States, don't they? And everyone in the States has a therapist.
Yeah.
for absolutely everything. But before I came to see you, I was very sort of, oh, I'm fine, I don't need this. And I remember my cousin said to me, just try it, because she had help and stuff. But I was definitely one of those type of people, like, I don't need this. So I was a bit kind of like adaptive child, literally, when I thought, oh, I've got to go to this thing, initially, which I don't know if I said that to you. But when I finished the work with you, I did actually feel like the next few weeks, I really missed it, because I do think that, I actually think everybody, like we talk about mental health, and I know there are certain mental health conditions that are, a condition or a disease, and, but I do think everybody has kind of keep that balance with their mental health. I think everybody could do with some kind of mental health support. And I definitely think this last 12 months that's happened globally, everybody needs some kind of support,
Absolutely.
I think people see it as, when we talk about mental health, it's like this, we've all got mental health balance, haven't we? I can't explain what I mean properly.
No, and absolutely, I think I know what you mean, and I totally actually agree with you. I think there potentially some level of stigma, or not understanding of the mental health support there is still probably centered around, I'll go to speak to a counselor when I am broken, and that means something bad about me, that means shame or something. When actually, I would love to see it. I go and speak to someone to prevent, to grow as a person. I'm a counselor myself, and I've got a counselor, and that's for me to explore how I feel. So nothing stays bottled and everything, is in the right place, and I can continue to grow as a person. So potentially seeing that as an investment into one's own self, investment to their own growth, investment to their emotional regulation, and investment to understanding oneself, which is incredibly exciting, I feel. I don't know how you found it. Was that exciting for you, that sort of a discovering one own self? It's it's an extraordinary journey.
Yeah, exactly. I just think my experience, the work that you did with me, it was different than what I perceived I would get out of it. Because I think it is that thing of, I don't need the help, I'm strong enough. Actually, now I've realised that actually by getting support means you're even stronger.
Yes.
Whereas I was perceiving it as a weakness, know.
Yeah.
So that just shows how I've changed and grown.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really, really lovely to hear. Really lovely to hear. And that's potentially, if I would say there is a aim in therapy, that's exactly that kind of result, to actually find your own strengths within you and actually realize, having some reframing on, some past beliefs to make your life, better, more enjoyable. Or
yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm glad I'm like the perfect student. How I've developed through the whole way.
And definitely inspiration, I would say, from what I also know that you do. And it's brilliant to hear how many people you inspire. And it's just wonderful for me to also see that actually not only, you have grown as a person to where you have grown, but you are now growing to inspire other people to get themselves on a similar journey so they can help themselves. And that's really wonderful.
Yeah. I've got this goal now that I want to impact. I've said a million women, but actually I think it's a million people through this podcast.
Okay.
Just in general, just be able to reach and impact, really like inspire, a million people from this podcast. That's because I can track the download, you see. So it's kind of, I can actually look at the numbers, be able to reach that goal. It's going to take me a while.
And that's really amazing, and that's kind of, it reminds me, I don't know if you remember, I must have talked about it because I talk about it all the time in therapy, is there sort of a defining the meaning in suffering, and I kind of feel this is exactly where you are. You find the meaning in your suffering, and now your meaning is, I'm just going to inspire a million people and make a difference, and that is just incredible.
No, you definitely gave me that, and I use that a lot in a lot of stuff that I talk about, or like turning pain into power, or and it's the same kind of I got that from you, so thank you. I use it everywhere now, and also I've just noticed this synergy with other people that may have gone through some kind of trauma, that we all have that similar thing. It's weird that even that all our stories are different, or what's actually happened, but we've all realized that the process is the same. So, and you do feel like a lot of people who I've met who are doing inspiring things, like they're speakers or authors that have had, something in their life. It's very similar how we feel about this, turning that pain into power, or finding a meaning in the suffering. And it's really, really interesting. That's what kind of links us all together, because I've interviewed a few people like that I've kind of come across, or I feel has kind of, like that synergy of people have come to me, that flow of people that I've connected with, because we've all gone through.
Absolutely. It's that sort of connectedness through the experience, and it's not experience of the story, because we never have a same story as another person. However, the way we processing the story, should there be a really difficult, challenging, or let alone traumatic experience, to some extent there will be similarities. It's like really amazing, one of the psychologists said, and then I use it all the time, is very simple sentence about trauma, which she says, a psychological trauma is an affliction of the powerless. So actually what connects us together in their suffering is feeling powerless.
Yeah.
And so that's potentially where you connected with a lot of people, you know, there would probably be one of the roots of where they felt.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that is. You always come out of these things that just get me really thinking, and it's all. So thanks for that, Lenka. So, what is your thoughts around everything that's happened with the pandemic and what's happening in this country? This is a political question now, but do you think that we should be? Because I can see that there's going to be even more people that are going to need help with, talk therapy and things like that. And it sounds and seems that anybody that's in this line of work is really pushed to the max at the moment.
Yes, it's really, really difficult. And it's actually, the sort of a talk about the trauma, about the sort of trauma is an affliction of the powerless. It's kind of like an opening line to COVID, when you think about it, because often we think that trauma is something that has to be visibly huge, visibly something, massive. But actually, if trauma means that I feel powerless and I have no control, that means that all of us potentially in the entire world have experienced trauma through COVID.
Yeah.
Because we have all felt powerless. We are powerless in what we can do, what we can't do, powerless in controlling the virus. We've been powerless in seeing or not seeing our families. So those layers of powerlessness are actually in every person on this planet most likely triggered to some extent some trauma brain processing. And that impact on mental health globally will be absolutely huge. So it is quite scary prospect, because I think, physical illness in best, of course, can be healed quite quickly. But mental health often can be recovering for years. So it will be a difficult task, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's we've never been through anything like this before, do we? So we just don't know what the future, but we can feel it. I think there's just going to be more people needing support because we're not over it yet, and there'll be more cases of people that will just need help, like you say.
Absolutely. And in some ways I kind of would like to say that potentially I truly believe that there is always the opposite end as well. Same with we can grow from trauma, or we can grow into post-traumatic stress disorders, but we can also grow into post-traumatic stress growth, so potentially from the positive perspective, maybe change in people's values, valuing more simple things and valuing each other, to some extent. So it could go both ways, I think. But even changing values to more positive values creates a change, and change is emotionally challenging.
Exactly.
So
the trust in that is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think change has been the thing. I think there was a quote years ago about change is the only constant, isn't it? I think, or
yes,
it's the only thing that we can guarantee that we're going to have change. And there's been a lot of change, I think, recently, with just even like the way we were. I was in the minority working online, and now everybody seems to be working online. So
absolutely,
even to that extent, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a crazy time that we've all gone through. So I always ask everybody the same question at the end of the interview. Before we get to that, I just wanted you to have the opportunity to share some of the good stuff that you're doing. So if you can email me, I know you were mentioning a couple of websites. So if there's anything that you want to share that can help people, or any work that you're doing at the moment that you want to get out there, then feel free. And we can also put that in the comments section as well. So we can actually put links of things. So what's going on in Lenka's world that's really cool and exciting and people can hear about?
I think for me, every day is exciting. I just feel like life is exciting if you make it exciting. But I feel working with people, seeing them grow is just very exciting. Academically, my life is also very exciting because I have been working in the last couple of years on researching connections between psychological trauma and physical health outcomes, especially chronic fatigue syndromes, which has been very under-researched, and the connection especially. So being able to take it into, PhD study and hopefully bring some extra knowledge and understanding how emotions, how our psyche works actually, or can impact on a physical body and creates actually long-term problems, is really, really exciting, I guess.
Yeah, that's linked. I think that's linked. Also, and I think if we don't, because obviously years ago I worked in the pharmaceutical world, and I've always felt that if we did more talking and less prescribing,
Yes,
as a country, just as a whole, or as a global, because obviously in the US it's even worse, really, that I think there's a direct link with a lot of disease. We know that stress impacts everything, don't we?
absolutely, absolutely. And you absolutely right. So if I could say something, to either inspire people or to make people think, that's another one of the quotes that have been written by one of my favorite psychologists, and it's so powerful, is actually suppressed emotion, or to suppress emotion, requires a physical work. So actually, when I am suppressing emotions, I'm creating physical changes in my body in that moment. If I'm suppressing emotion on every day of my life, I will create a physical changes to my body. So it's really important to recognize that. So exactly, if I can talk and don't suppress it, I will not change my physical body for worse.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it?
It makes a lot of sense. It's hard, so and I appreciate that prospect of talking for many is really scary.
Yeah, exactly. But I know, I'm like a real advocate of it now. It was really, really scary at the beginning, and I felt like it was a weakness, but actually I realised it was actually a massive strength to do it. So anybody that is thinking about possibly, getting the support and help, if you are going through it, I just really massively encourage it, because you'll thank yourself massively afterwards and realise that actually there's probably a bit of fear, isn't there, of doing it?
Yes.
It's this fear or embarrassment of needing help or feeling like you want help, but actually you're taking control of your life.
Yeah.
And
is there for people, like you say, is there sort of an acknowledgement, I need a help, acknowledgement, I need to look into myself. I think that acknowledgement is the hardest step, but it's also the most important step for change, for better.
And also, it's like you might go have a personal trainer if you want to get fit.
Yes.
You might go to get a business coach or an Amazon coach if you want to learn the Amazon business like me, and that seems fine for people to do it.
Yes.
You might even go for a relationship coach.
Yes.
I know people who've gone for relationship, or going through bad times like that. So why not have one that's about really like your mind, or because
absolutely,
it's so powerful, and we know that, and it encompasses all of these things. So it's just seeing it in a different way, isn't it? How you're
100%, and absolutely love that sort of a thing. If you want to get physically stronger, you hire a personal trainer, and then you talk about it. Oh, hey, check me out, I've got a personal trainer. And it's okay to talk about it. But actually, if I get a personal trainer for my mind, I'm like, oh, I must not say anything.
Yeah.
When actually, you're strengthening yourself in a really different way, but it's even more, to admire. So 100% agree.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant, great stuff. Well, I really appreciate your time. I love speaking to you. I've missed you. I love our conversations.
Yeah,
I can talk for hours on all these different sort of topics, really, and it's great that it's sort of really helped me on my journey. So you've played your part on helping me and sharing really this podcast, really.
It's honestly been a pleasure, and it's been so brilliant to see you again, and to see you doing well and continue with the same way of kind of being connected with yourself. So that's really wonderful.
It's funny, actually, I was invited recently, in fact, someone that I interviewed on this podcast who's a domestic abuse survivor, and she's written a workbook.
Mm-hmm.
Her and another lady had done this workbook, and I was invited to the launch of it. It's to help people from recovery, and it's really, really cool workbook that we can go through. Kind of thought, I wish I had that, you know. And I was invited to the launch and everything, and there was one of the ladies that was invited was her IDVA, which is, you know, for
IDVA, yeah,
what it stands for now, but
yeah, Independent Domestic Violence Advisor.
yeah, that's it. And I was like, I never got one of those. And then this lady was explaining how she'd seen her at the beginning and she'd helped on that. And I was like, but I had Lenka. I was thinking, I had Lenka. She was my equivalent, really. This lady was talking about the feedback that she had, and I thought, yeah, no one else had a Lenka. In different areas, there's different funding and different things that go on. That's what's sometimes a bit rubbishy about things, I think, in this country. You know, every area is different for different things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what they're doing with this workbook is they're having it available online.
Brilliant.
Of course, online. So that's not going to then be different, is it, in different areas of what support you
there
get.
is exactly there is different support, so you know, everyone seek out for it. Absolutely. The independent, you know, advisors for domestic violence or different, you know, abuse or type of abuse is there. It's just often we don't know about it.
Well, exactly. And I think that's one of the hardest things, isn't it? Especially with going through something, whatever it is finding all these resources to help out there.
Absolutely.
Obviously, whether it's through the police or through, you know, Women's Aid or, you know, all these different places, sometimes it is it's like trying to find the support in the first place is difficult. But anyway, it was just interesting. So I was like, I never had one of those. And then afterwards I was like, but I had Lenka.
You did really well.
Even better.
So nice to hear. So nice to hear. And it was such a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, no, it was. I loved it. And it's just great to connect with you again. And so at the end of every interview, I always ask this one question, and it's because it's a freedom podcast. It's, what does freedom mean to you? Because it means different things to different people. And I'm going to be really curious of how you're going to answer this. What does freedom mean to you, Lenka?
The moment you asked the question, I had an answer in my own mind. And there was, for me, it means my life and it means the world.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It means just everything.
Yeah. It is brilliant. I love that answer.
Okay. It's probably quite a big answer, probably not straight to the point, but that's how I see it.
No, I do. I like that. Because it's kind of meant more to me recently by now fully getting full freedom.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting asking the question because lots of different people answer in different ways. And I'm always curious, and I love the answers that I get from everyone. So, and do you create a list of these answers? It would be quite interesting to kind of read, you know, actually, I don't know, 20 different answers, you know. That's maybe I should do a kind of like a graphic with all of them on. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I would like to see them myself. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, great stuff. Thanks ever so much for your time. Great to connect with you again. And we will, for people listening, we will share all of Lenka's contact details in the show notes if you're watching or listening on iTunes, and if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll be able to find them in the comments, the links as well, if you want to reach out to Lenka and get in touch. So thanks ever so much for your time. Thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure. Thanks ever so much. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.